By calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the social pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to tune in, chime in, participate in the show, and, of course, specifically, it's Friday. We have made it through another particularly crazy week. I mean, the weirdness just keeps getting stacked up because, there have been good things happening, been bad things happening, and a whole lot of impacts we're seeing here in the borderlands. So this is our pressure relief valve for the week to get into all of that, as you already have Edgar Ortiz joining us over on facebook.com/Talk El Paso. There is so much more than we can even be able to scram into a show like here today. Because, okay, let me just list some of the major topics on my mind. Of course, the whole Ukraine situation is one that I wouldn't say I'm losing sleep, but I'm definitely not sleeping much, as I am constantly over on different feeds, social media. I dare say that this might be the first social media war, in which I mean that most of the stuff, okay, just even more specifically, I saw one incident of what started looking like a tank driving over a car, crashing into it head first. I saw that same incident from 3 different angles of 3 different people who happen to be in that area getting it on their phone, all completely unrelated to each other. And that has been, I keep seeing that happening, even without doing like seriously deep dives. So all the information coming out of there is just overwhelming. And the impacts here, there's even over on our website right now, ktsmradio.com, the impacts, again, I use the phrase weird because good or bad is far too limiting with most of this. And as Catherine Cordry mentioned here, $105 per barrel of oil as of this morning. The article we got over on the website, Texas oil and gas industry could benefit from Russian war with Ukraine. So this is why I use the phrase weird, because just saying good or bad, positive or negative, doesn't encompass the total WTF-ness that can come with most of this. The war, completely awful. And it's hard to see how any of that could be beneficial, but some of the second or even third order effects here are still coming in. Edgar Ortiz saying, drill, baby, drill. That is the possibility of returning the U.S. to be an energy net exporting country, even if, the geopolitical situation continues to shift very rapidly. So that's just one aspect of this on my mind right now. The other part is we are in elections. I know that would usually be the thing I would have mentioned first, but there's just so much overwhelming here. We've got a lot of focus on Texas laws coming out, more last-ditch campaigning happening going into this primary, and again, one of your last days to go out and do early voting very specifically if you are wanting to, because we got that going on, today is the last day of early voting, and then Election Day itself on March 1st, Tuesday, which I have realized I am probably going to have to go do myself here because of all of the craziness that has come with all of that here. Michael Pato saying USG apparently upped its order of Russian oil by 773,000 barrels this past Monday. The energy crisis has already been going on for a while now. That, again, hindsight is 2020 and sounds like beach and not a sandy one when it comes to how the impacts of decisions that you made before can then have unintended consequences down the line. Yeah, I bet that Keystone XL pipeline looking like not so much of a winner on the decision there for the administration right about now. I'm sure there's a couple people thinking, well, maybe that wasn't the right one. And oh my gosh, all of this stuff so interconnected today. But point is, we are taking your comments and calls throughout the show because I am sure that there are other effects that we are talking about here that people may have other ideas about, other perspectives on, and this is the day that we talk about all of that. So if you're wanting to call in during the show, that number to do so, got to put on screen here, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Edgar Ortiz making another point here with all the news about Russia and gas prices. No longer see the amount of COVID cases in the news. It's kind of fallen off, I will agree. this also does come at a time when, in general, things seem to have been leveling off as it was from the, beginning of year spike that was seen by most of the other parts of the country, including ours to a certain extent, but it wasn't quite the overwhelming levels that we saw previous years anyway in our area. But I mean, all of these effects, all this stuff intermingled, and so there's so much going on. So again, if you're really wanting to comment or call in during the show, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Geez, it is just so busy. And of course, then just, again, more topics to just go down to. We have, actually a pretty good example of how just busy things are. I've said it a few times that it seems like things are happening faster, more rapidly, and just as kind of a case in point, next Tuesday, besides being Election Day, it's also the State of the Union address, which we will be bringing you live and then having a brief response show afterwards with some of the local analysis on next Tuesday. So that is, not been since I've been doing this, that we've had such a confluence of events at one point in time. Feels like everything is converging, and a lot of expectations. The cloudy crystal ball is cloudier than ever, and how a lot of this is going to turn out, but we'll keep talking about it here because it's important to do so. I mean, we have been seeing further troop deployments happening to NATO allied nations within Eastern Europe as part of a potential build-up or defensive force, I think is the way it is getting described here. So, oh boy, a whole lot going on here. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM, as we have Louis Pinato, Calvin Williams, and more tuning in and chiming in. Got a call on the line here right now. You're live with... Okay, maybe not that one there. All right, if you're calling again, make sure you got a good phone call connection there. Anyway, because you'll go on air if you're calling in the middle of the segment. Otherwise... might be put on the line there for just a bit. We'll try that one here again in a second. If you're Ortiz pointing out something or making a question here, at what point do we question Biden's mental capacity and take away the nuclear codes from him like the left did to President Trump? I mean, they never took away the nuclear codes, although there was that really weird situation that I'm not sure worked out in anyone's favor with Nancy Pelosi and some of those communications, the back channels that we talked about years. Feels like years ago now, and at a certain point it is, but it feels like even longer than what I'm like. Feels like half a decade that was so long ago because so much has been going on since then here. I have seen a spike in searches going on like a Google Analytics for the 25th Amendment, most specifically, which there were some issues being thrown about during the Trump administration. I don't find it useful in the most part to armchair quarterback the mental state of any elected official, not being a medical professional, nor specifically their doctor. Just gets a little navel gazing, to be perfectly honest. But more specifically, I do think that there are questions about the office. And okay, so put a case in point on this. The people out here who comment and say things like, let's go Brandon. There are people on the left who would be saying more specifically, just say the thing that you mean to say. Just say the phrase that you're using euphemistically, and I will probably agree with you. I mean, new polling out today showing that the first year of the Biden administration, overall by Americans, considered a failure in a variety of ways. And even with the current issues going on, inflation and the economy being chief among them as the complaints with it, along with some of the COVID controls and restrictions coming out of it. So that's just setting the table for a bunch of the subjects here today. We're going to take that first break already. Coming out of the break, we'll try to get a clean call on the line here. Again, we're taking those calls throughout the hour. So if you wanted to call in, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso Freeway is looking pretty clear for Friday. Eastbound on the Gateway at Hawkins Boulevard, that accident's been cleared. Paseo del Norte at Trans Mountain eastbound, a disabled vehicle blocking the right shoulder there. And road construction's got the left lane closed till 4 on Gateway Boulevard eastbound between the Loop and East Lake Road. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies.
Sometimes it feels like your business is going 100 miles an hour, barely keeping up. Dell Technologies advisors have the Windows PCs and tech you need to help you get past whatever's in front of you. Call an advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL. A start to a simpler experience with Windows 11 Pro.
This is Dan Patrick, proud to be your Lieutenant Governor. You know, the principles and values students learned in a one-room schoolhouse are still true today. That's why I passed a bill to ban teaching of critical race theory and stop boys from playing girls' school sports. The keys to a good education are great teachers and involved parents. I will always fight for great teachers and for parents' view to be heard and respected.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, a principled conservative fighting for Texas.
Running for Lieutenant Governor in 2014, I pledged to ban sanctuary cities and fund border security at historic levels. I kept my promise. This year, I approved funding to build the wall. Texas must secure the border because Biden won't, and we must stop those here illegally from voting.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is endorsed by President Donald Trump.
I am giving him my complete and total endorsement.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Dan Patrick.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/.
Hey, Texas! We want to remind you that it's election season. In Texas, you'll need an approved form of ID to vote. Visit votetexas.gov to learn what types of photo ID you can bring to the polls and what to do if you don't possess and can't reasonably obtain one. And if you're eligible to vote by mail, learn about the requirements and how to identify yourself on your ballot by mail materials. So visit votetexas.gov today and get vote ready.
Here's NFL legend Terry Bradshaw.
This is it, your last chance to win big money from Publishers Clearinghouse.
There is just one day left to enter to win $5,000 a week forever on February 28th.
Yep, you got to enter PCH.com before it's too late.
Win and you get $5,000 a week for your life. Then after that, someone you choose gets $5,000 a week for their life.
Real people really win. There's only one day left to get in it to win it. $5,000 a week forever. Last chance. Enter now at PCH.com.
Entries due 2/26. No purchase necessary. Void or prohibited.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to participate in the show, particularly today. It is Friday. We have made it through another pretty crazy week. A lot of, well, things just keep getting weirder. I need to get that on a t-shirt because I say that a lot, because good, bad, in the middle, all of it just feels like it's happening faster and in unexpected ways. Yeah. Anyway, if you want to add your 2 cents to it, ask your question, comment, concerns, we are taking those calls throughout the hour. Just got to keep them clean for FCC purposes. And we have some, a lot of conversation going on over on the social, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. The main one for the Skeptic Squad, as Edgar Ortiz is pointing out as well. And, I mean, a whole lot of commentary going on. I will say this. There are plenty of legitimate questions about response, viability, how we are even doing this, literally, with what we're here to debate. But I just want to make one thing very clear. Anyone saying, and therefore I like or I support or would prefer Putin, you're going to have a bad time. That's about all I'm going to say about that here. But we are going to get to more of those calls because that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Right now we do have Joe on the east side here with us right now. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
Well, there's a couple of things that I'd like to talk about. First of all, I'm a patriot. I believe in the United States of America, and I used to be a Democrat. I no longer vote Democrat because that's the culture of death. It's all about abortion with the Democratic Party. But I do back up our nation and always will back up our nation. And so I believe that the reason that President Trump was elected was back in 2016. When we had the debates with all the Republicans, he's the only one who was not a politician.
Yep.
And he explained to the American people that he was going to go in there to do a job. And by golly, he did the job. Everything that he said he was going to do, he did. So that's the reason that Americans voted for President Trump. And that's why he won the presidency. And that was just the comment that I wanted to make.
I mean, there is an undeniable level of support that the former president had at that point and still very obviously enjoys. I mean, I think a question that comes up more often than not, as we are not quite, I mean, he still hasn't technically announced for the next presidential campaign, though I would be more than mildly surprised if he doesn't eventually. I mean, fundraising is the focus right now, absolutely, for most of the appearances he makes. But more specifically than that, I mean, the question that essentially bears out now is it possible to consider yourself a Republican or a part of the conservative movement without liking Trump? I mean, we've had some callers and some individuals who have said that I don't think I like some of the stances on here, so I might support someone else, but that is not the majority of the conversation that is going on when it comes to it. So again, the one that stays most in my mind is it possible to even consider yourself that? And I mean, some answers have come either way, but a decent amount of even just people calling into this show have said essentially no in this day and age.
Absolutely. Yes. We need to look at President Trump because the man has a very good mind. He knows how to think on his feet. No comparison to Sleepy Joe. Sleepy Joe, I'm sorry, he's not cognitive. He has to have someone tell him what to say. He has to have props and a teleprompter to be able to speak out to the nation. And sometimes I just believe that he should resign. I know he's not going to do it, but I believe that he should go ahead and just resign.
Yeah, a lot of comments coming in about well, a lot of these issues you're bringing up here. I mean, SCOTUS also being mentioned, some of the comments over here. I would be surprised if that happens as well. But I think that's, well, again, the opinion polls bear out as they are that it's not even strictly partisan because there are plenty on the left that feel that the campaign promises haven't been gone through. Now, for those on the right, I wouldn't say that this is necessarily a reason for celebration because this is not exactly an enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of situation because because they don't like him doesn't mean that they like them for what you're putting forth. But again, there's a reasonable debate to be had, and there are different speaking styles out there, and there were criticisms of the former president, definitely criticisms of the current president, and this is why I come down to policies. But even on a policy basis, I think there are more than a couple of legitimate questions about are the things that are being put forth have been focused on, are they what are needed or effective at this moment? And that's the debate we'll definitely continue to have. So thank you for the points in the call. I do appreciate it.
I really appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
No, you too. You have a good one there. Again, we are taking those calls throughout the hour here, so thanks for kicking things off there, even if we had some phone line trouble earlier here. A lot of comments coming in. The nominations talking about Edgar Ortiz bringing that up as well. But let's get to some more calls in the line here before we hit that next segment here. Again, if you're calling in the middle of a segment, we might pop you right up, so just be ready to go here. In fact, we got a call on the line here right now. Again, the number 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Yeah, hi, Andrew. This is Mary from the West Side. How are you doing today?
Oh, doing all right, Mary. Thanks for the call. What's on your mind?
So I just wanted to call. I don't know if you remember, but I did call in yesterday, and I had some comments about Greg Abbott.
Absolutely.
And then afterwards, I continued to listen to your show, of course, and I did hear where your caller Andrew from the West Side called in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to say ahead of time, have no issues with Andrew. Usually, he and I, even though we don't know each other, but we're usually on the same wavelength. And so this is not about down-talking Andrew, but I do want to respond to his comment that he made about my comment and just clarify that, you know, what he said about Greg Abbott. He said, well, just remember that he did deploy the National Guard and he did deploy DPS. Well, I want to remind Andrew and all the audience that even though Greg Abbott deployed National Guard and DPS, again, it's all about optics because the National Guard is not allowed to do anything other than, you know, they're just there standing around facilitating. And So let me explain real quickly why I say that, too, because when I went to the Greg Abbott rally on Tuesday, there was a gentleman there. He was out of Precinct 27, and he, on his phone, Andrew, had a video showing, it was like in the middle of the night or early morning because it was still dark, and he has a video showing where the National Guard is waiting at the riverbank to help the illegal aliens off their rafts. They're giving the hand and helping these people come across, and then they usher them over to the side where the Border Patrol is waiting to put them on a bus to take them somewhere else. I saw the video. We've all heard of these incidents. I actually saw the live video. So that's what the National Guard is doing in Texas. And then Andrew said, well, they've been given authority to arrest. Well, they can arrest if they get you on private property. But these illegal aliens, when they're coming across on that raft, their first foot on the ground is not somebody's private property.
Yeah,
anyway,
for the most part here. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, that is the technicality we're talking about here when it comes to the state level deployment that is happening with this. They can only be brought up on state level charges here. So, I mean, there are plenty of perspectives that come with it, but getting the technicalities and how the actual implementation works here, and of course, how it's being brought up by opponents and even within the Abbott office and campaign itself are important discussion points here. Absolutely.
Well, I just wanted, like I said, I was just responding to his comment, and like I said, what good does it do if he has deployed the National Guard or DPS if at the same time all they're doing is being a welcoming wagon to the illegal aliens, and not at any fault of the National Guard, but that's the role that they've been ordered to perform. So again, it's all about optics.
That has been one of the biggest questions, particularly. I mean, we've seen it from more than a couple of states now about those kind of actions immediately adjacent to the election itself here. I mean, the most coming out of, say New Mexico, for instance, would be the masking changes are coming up here. And of course, the focus on border immigration issues happening in here and Arizona, for example, nearby. So again, proximity to elections is always an interesting time to be looking at what our elected officials are doing. And I think there's a reasonable debate to be had about, is this sincere or is this, well, the time will tell if after the election it keeps up or not.
Well, yeah, but after the election, if we get the wrong person in office, then it's too late. So again, I just ask the audience to keep an open mind. I know I promise I'm not getting paid by the West campaign to come on and speak for him. But again, I'm just thinking of who is a stronger candidate as far as representing the Texas citizenry and our values and what's better for us. But I just want to thank you for taking the call again, and I hope you all have a nice weekend.
Oh, you too as well. Thank you very much for the point in the call there. Do appreciate it. I mean, I'm always going to be in favor of people with, impassioned points, the things that they want to talk about, doing that particularly on today on the show, literally what the mission is here for the program here today. And even more specifically, because some of the polling out there shows, again, certain trajectories going on with likely candidates getting on to the nomination and then on the actual November election ballot. But even within that, I want to caution this, to think that it's just, oh, well, there's no point to it, because even within the trajectories we're looking at, they can certainly be adjusted, and surprises can happen. They've happened before and will probably happen again before we're all done with this. More specifically, the stances on positions can be shifted by just the contest itself. So if you've got something you're passionate about, again, I soundly reject the black pill when it comes to local politics, the state of affairs, and all of that, because it's definitely not going to get better if you're not involved with it. And if you are actually doing something about it, it can shift it. It can shift it even imperceptibly, but even just the way the conversation is happening, the way things get implemented, it may be hard to see how an individual can do much, but together, literally the way the power of voting works, a lot can be accomplished. And even just how things are talked about, how these issues are presented, and they eventually come up, and then, items signed by the governor, legislation, etc., can be affected. So that is my, I guess, not quite cajoling, but not quite chastising. I guess encouragement? I guess is that the phrase I'm looking for here? To say that, yeah, be involved, talk about, and focus on what is important to you, almost regardless of utility, but utility is important too here. All right, we are due for that next break here already. We got a lot of calls on the line, and we'll be getting to more after the break. So if you're there, stay there, because we'll be back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Oh, so much to talk about. A lot more calls. 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Iraca Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. The nation's strictest abortion law went before the Texas Supreme Court yesterday, but an attorney representing abortion clinics says he no longer sees a way in this case to halt the law. The Austin-based court took no immediate action over Texas's restrictive law, which since September has banned abortions after roughly 6 weeks of pregnancy and has resulted in a sharp drop of abortions across the state. But an attorney for abortions clinics says that even the court's best case ruling for them wouldn't undo the law that is enforced by private citizens who can collect $10,000 or more by suing doctors who perform abortions. And President Biden today nominated federal appeals court judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to the U.S. Supreme Court. The 51-year-old attended Harvard and served on the U.S. Sentencing Commission, the agency that develops federal sentencing policy, before becoming a federal judge in 2013. I'm Iraca Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Gateway Boulevard southbound Montana, a lot of congestion from an earlier accident. The backup is to Trowbridge. I-10 westbound at Porfirio Diaz. Got a crash at Chelsea and Montana affecting Trowbridge. You can use Yandell or Reynolds as alternates. And an injury accident Montwood Drive eastbound at Traywood. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
The KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center. This is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We've got a pretty quiet forecast leading into the weekend with a much warmer day on Saturday, only to be followed by an overnight weak front Saturday night into Sunday. So Sunday looks to be about 4 to 5 degrees cooler, but really, in the big picture, we're not looking too bad. In fact, going into next week, we could even be flirting with temperatures once again near 80.
This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State. Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
It's Ram Truck Month at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Don't wait for your tax refund. Buy now and get huge savings with zero down. Save thousands in interest with zero APR for 72 months on all new 2022 Dodge Charger, SXT, and GT models. Huge selection of new cars, trucks, and SUVs with huge savings. 2022 Ram trucks with 2.9% APR for 72 months. Zero down. Zero payments for 90 days. Get her done. Upside down in your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. The all-new Sunland Park Dodge Certified Pre-Owned Supercenter has a great selection with more arriving daily. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is still fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. H-Wheels factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APRs, $13.89 per thousand finance. Also, at vehicles with a free credit. Offers not combined.
Are you covered by Medicare and Medicaid? Well, El Paso Health Plus is the plan for you. As a local Medicare Advantage plan, we can offer our members more. Call us at 833-742-3125 or EPHmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus.
So in life, throws you uh-ohs. Just to save, better get Mako.
Go to Mako.com for an online estimate today.
This report is sponsored by Mako.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we were talking about here today. A lot of ways to interact with the show. We do have those phone lines open, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Well, full up at the moment, but we'll certainly be taking those throughout both hours of the show through 6 p.m. So that's what we do on Fridays. Pressure relief valve for the week. Oh, boy, has there been a lot of pressure this week with all the issues, local, state, national, international, a lot of international focus going on right now, and those impacts and continuing on. We're working on some things for you on that for the next week as well, but just so much going on. Ukraine, elections, State of the Union, border crisis. I mean, just all of this stuff. Just is it just me, or do things seem to be going faster? I feel like I'm going crazy sometimes with paying attention to too much stuff here, but we'll keep doing it here. John Browston pointing out that almost $100 per barrel of oil over now, apparently. Hundreds of oil wells are coming back online. Unfortunately, it won't help the price of gas for at least a couple of months. That does seem to be the timeline we're looking at for a lot of these situations, even as things continue to change rapidly. It's more than I can even combine in a sentence, and we'll do as best as we can to get through all the parts of the show here. Some questions coming up about voting, as it always does, and I, again, reject the idea that it has no purpose, because the only thing you're going to be guaranteed to have things change or probably get worse is if you do nothing. But also, when it comes down to the local situation, our local voting, I am happy to say we have already surpassed our previous 2 vote totals by hitting 5% as of yesterday. So we'll see how it comes out probably for early next week as of the total amount for early voting. So I am cautiously optimistic that we'll actually hit double digits this time. Not like great, because we're still talking about, even with that following through, 1 in 10 El Paso registered voters. So just please make your plan. Go out and vote. Just do it. Gosh. Anyway, before I get too far on that here, let's get back to the calls and lines. We are taking those throughout the show. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We got Mark on the west side here with us right now. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Andrew, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to comment on something that I think it was your last caller. I think it was Barry on the west side, but she's called in a couple days now, really promoting West. And, basically all I hear her saying is, just that Abbott isn't doing anything, so vote for West. And I don't know, I don't know about anybody else, but that always kind of turns me off. I prefer, somebody telling me why I should vote for somebody rather than why I should not vote for somebody. It's just one of those things that I think that if the current governor, he did do stuff, right? For
sure.
Whether it was effective or not is arguable, but using the National Guard and giving them powers to arrest on private property, it's not nothing. And just to say that he didn't do anything or it's not working, don't vote for him, vote for West. It's like, well, but why? And what do you expect him to do? Like, I don't know. I don't hear people saying real clear, like, if you were the governor, what exactly would you do? Like step by step, what would you do to solve the border? And if somebody's coming across on a raft, I don't think they should cross illegally, but at the same time, I want our law enforcement to protect human life. I don't want them to, let us just block them from getting off the raft. And then when on U.S. soil, well, we got to do something with them. We can't just send them across back on the river. Just as if somebody were to get on a raft from Cuba, can't let them die in the ocean. We have to rescue them and process them. We have a rule of law we have to follow. But I don't know. I guess it just always rubs me the wrong way when people grumble and they don't really have a positive or what should they do kind of solution. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I take your point there about, I think it is unfortunately persuasive to many people out there of, we don't like this guy for that reason, therefore vote for the other guy. I think that's more than a little bit of how we ended up in the current national situation we are, but that's separate from what you're talking about here. I think she got a little bit more into that previous call she was mentioning about some of the benefits she saw of a potential Ellen West administration. But, to your point here, this is why I like talking about policy. Because, even under the Biden administration, there have certainly been things going on, and I do find it unpersuasive to say, they haven't done anything. I mean, let's reserve that for Congress, okay? Because that's where it applies. More specifically, the policies and doing the comparison between, okay, this is what has been going on, effective or not, what you are proposing here, what do you think that impact would be, how would you implement it, those kind of things. That's the reason that's the questions we ask, because I will in general agree with you that what are you actually going to do beyond the, oh, I stand for this, cool, how you going to do it is the more in-depth question. So thank you for the point and the call there. Do appreciate it. A lot of questions coming in here. Oh, geez. Calvin Williams asked, was Abbott sued to stop enforcing border laws? There have been legal challenges kind of throughout, most specifically the state implementation of them. There was also, I believe, I forget the jurisdiction it has fallen into, but a state-level case that has now come up questioning those National Guard arrests. So I think that is a part of it, but that has still to kind of further develop because that was an individual case, maybe more cases following it, but that remains to be seen. All right, getting more of the calls here. Oh, so Calvin Williams cutting me to the quick, saying double digits. When did this become a comedy show? Again, I hope against hope. I get for a lot of things. A lot of things. The general way it has worked out in El Paso is that early voting is about half of the overall total amount of voting that happens. So it'll be about 50% early voting, 50% election day. So according to that formula, with us just over 5% voter turnout so far, we might hit 10%. I'm not going to hold my breath because I don't want to pass out, but it's possible that this could happen. So we'll see. I hope it's not just the worst joke I've made lately. Anyway, getting to a couple more calls on the line here before we hit that next break. Are taking calls throughout both hours. Don't worry. But we do have Joe on the west side here with us right now. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Thanks for taking my call. First of all, I want to, I'd like to give history, a little bit of history before I, go into detail on my subject matter.
Sure.
But I want people to remember, especially Hispanics, Mexican Americans, that Bush nominated Miguel Estrada, and I'm doing this because Biden just nominated somebody for Supreme Court Justice. But Bush nominated Miguel Estrada, who was a jurist, a brilliant jurist, to the U.S. Court of Appeals in Colombia. But he was rejected by the Democrats. As a matter of fact, his nomination was derailed by the Democrats, and specifically by Joe Biden, because he was Hispanic. Joe Biden's a racist. And then later on, and I don't remember which George Bush was, or which of the Bushes did this, but the President Bush nominated Alberto Gonzalez, another jurist, great jurist, to the Supreme Court. And that was again derailed by Joe Biden. Now, Hispanics, Mexicanos, Mexican Americans understand this. They don't like us. The Democrats don't like us. And that's why I left the Democratic Party. Okay, now let me get into my subject matter. This lady that called, Mary from the West Side or whatever, I think she's very naive or disingenuous. And I'm beginning to think that she's disingenuous because she's backtracking now. All the factors that she mentioned about Abbott not doing was actually a list of accomplishments that Abbott has accomplished. Now, I think it's a political ploy by the Democrats to disrupt and create chaos in the Republican Party in the election of a very, very popular governor. Beto is probably sending his thugs to disrupt the Abbott campaign and hopefully get Alan West elected. And this is because Beto O'Rourke feels that he can defeat Alan West, because Alan West has only been in Texas maybe 2 or 3 years. And actually, not being from Texas, Beto thinks he has the advantage. And for sure, Alan West has very few accomplishments in this state. Now, the person that called promoting Alan West didn't even know his website. It is a known fact that a lot of these Beto thugs have Beto signs in their front yard. So I would say be careful what you hear about Abbott. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Okay, I mean, I think there may be the possibility of people talking out of turn or wanting a different opponent to line up against their candidate. But I guess I don't find it too useful to then question the motives of everyone who happens to disagree with you. There are legitimate questions about the performance of the current governor. And I mean, the challenges he essentially invited by the way he put forth his particularly coronavirus policy. I mean, that was essentially the inciting point for most of the campaign. I mean, it's a pretty stacked ballot against him, which would be otherwise surprising in almost any other circumstance for an otherwise pretty popular governor and a sitting Republican governor in Texas. Again, any other year, you tell me that people are challenging the governor of Texas, I'd say, okay, what Democrat is trying to, that kind of almost tilting on a windmill kind of situation. But in this case, I mean, there are reasonable questions to be had. So, and I'm not saying that there's not anyone out there that might be trying to do, essentially describing kind of false flag there, but I guess I don't find that useful because then you're not exactly responding to their points either about their issues or concerns with the governor here. But we'll certainly have the debate about the merits therein within it. Absolutely. It's kind of what we do here. All right, we got time for one more quick one before we hit this next break. We got James on the west side here with us right now. James, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. Wow, we're getting a lot of different nuanced perspectives on the primary, and that's what I want to call about too, because that's the thing.
Okay.
Real quick, shout out to my homies, James Ratcliffe, Louis Peinado. Guys, keep it up.
Okay.
But to get on to business, no, I agree with some of the points that Joe made and Mary made. I agree with Mary that there's a reason, good reason, that many freedom-loving Texans take issue with Greg Abbott for caving on. He shut down churches on Easter Sunday. He shut down businesses. People lost businesses. People in El Paso have been, held to, pressure by their local government, and Abbott enabled all of that. People used to say, "Make America Texas." Now they say, "Make America Florida," because Abbott caved, and he needs to be held accountable. And this primary election is so important. I care more about statewide Texas elections than I do about national, because national is probably a lost cause at this point. I hope it's not, but if you want to save the republic, voters need to not just vote, but much more importantly, they need to make educated decisions. And this primary is an opportunity to choose better. Alan West, I think he is a con man. Look at his voting record. He served one term in Florida, and in that one term, he voted against an amendment to the National Defense Appropriations Act that would have taken out a provision for indefinite detention of American citizens. Think of all the American citizens, including the January 6th people who were protesting. Some of them went into the Capitol, some did not, and they've been indefinitely detained without due process. Alan West enabled that. He also enabled the FISA court to spy on American citizens without a warrant. His voter index rating for his one term, they give him a C. Now let me tell you somebody positive to vote for.
Okay.
Because I think Mark from the West Side, he said we should talk about what are you for. The Republican Liberty Caucus of Texas, which I serve as a vice chair, we vet candidates. We only consider candidates who fill out a survey, and we look at their survey, we look at their voting record. We've proudly endorsed Don Huffines for governor of Texas. We feel very confident that Don Huffines has the right philosophy, that he will be able to better assert state sovereignty against an overreaching federal government that is constantly trying to grow and expand. And as it grows, the Texas and the individual grow smaller. And you need a governor with a backbone. He filed constitutional carry in the Texas Senate before it was a priority, because he's one of us. He has the same values, and he's not concerned making political calculations on, like, will this hurt me politically? He just does things because he has backbone, and he's going to do what's right. He advocates for criminal justice reform. He advocates to eliminate property taxes, school choice, and he's not making this a political calculation when he does it. He does it because he is the man. One more endorsement. We've also endorsed James White. I know that Sid Miller is a big name, and a lot of people, they're not informed. I'm sorry?
Yeah, no, we just haven't talked much about that race at all here, so I kind of wasn't familiar with that name until you mentioned Sid Miller then.
unfortunately, it's not important to just yes, El Paso, we need to get our voter numbers up because then candidates will care about El Paso and they'll visit El Paso more if and only if we could get our voter numbers up. But you do more harm if you cast an ignorant ballot. A lot of people, the number one thing that they vote by is name recognition, and that's very unfortunate. Also, people like that Sid Miller, he looks like a really cool cowboy. He wears a cowboy hat, cowboy vest, and he also has a rodeo. He's got a rodeo history. That's awesome. However, I met him in 2014, and he was against industrial hemp because big cotton and big lumber were against it. Now, his office is being investigated because his chief political deputy has been indicted for taking bribes in order to issue hemp grower licenses. That's a lot of controversy behind that office. We need to restore integrity to this office. It's very important to Texas's agricultural, food, and industrial supply. James White, we've been working with James White in the State House for years. He is one of the most principled leaders in the State House. He's chaired committees where he got stuff done. He got gun done. He was chair of the Homeland and Public Safety Committee, where he got bills for constitutional carry and other gun rights bills forwarded. But he's also a champion of criminal justice reform. If you want to keep law enforcement a respected institution in Texas, these reforms on law enforcement are critical. And he's been a leader on that. And he's been a leader on several other issues like election integrity. He chaired the committee during the special session where we passed election integrity. And he's got an agricultural past. He's been supportive of industrial hemp from the get-go and other things that will help Texas farmers and ranchers. So please look into these candidates, Don Huffines and James White. We've also endorsed Dwayne Tipton for Railroad Commissioner.
There are a lot of positions on this ballot right here. We talk about some of the top ballot ones, but I will be perfectly honest. I am not as versed as I should be and plan on being before I do head to the ballot box. Again, I find the debate between any voter versus perfect voter to be I take the standpoint of perfect should not be the enemy of good right now, because I will take more voters, but I do, all things being equal, would prefer a better informed one. Absolutely. We got to take that next break right now, so thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it, but we'll be back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. We're going to be doing a short break next, so we'll take calls more as we come back. Stay tuned. We'll Talk El Paso.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Heavy congestion on Gateway southbound in Montana. The backup is to Trowbridge. The 10 westbound at Porfirio Diaz, an injury accident causing delays. The Gateway westbound is slow from the 54 Patriot back to Hawkins with 5-minute delays. And the medical team is working a wreck with injuries. Montwood Drive eastbound at Traywood. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Don't drive much, don't pay much with pay-per-mile insurance from Allstate. Life is good when you're in the driver's seat. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
Here's Joe Biden's strategy for the border crisis.
There will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration. In the first 100 days of my administration, no one will be deported at all.
Biden's reckless border policies have emboldened dangerous drug cartels. Listen to Tarrant County Sheriff Bill Wayburn.
There's a clear and present danger. It's deadly fentanyl, and it's killing our kids. How's it getting here? Through our southern border. That's why Governor Abbott's deployed the National Guard to assist law enforcement at the border. He's given us new authority to arrest trespassers. He's increased jail capacity to handle criminal arrests. Joe Biden should be securing this border, but he won't. That's why Governor Abbott is getting the job done.
Governor Abbott is endorsed by the National Border Patrol Council. On March 1st, vote for Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Hey, Texas! We want to remind you that it's election season. In Texas, you'll need an approved form of ID to vote. Visit votetexas.gov to learn what types of photo ID you can bring to the polls and what to do if you don't possess and can't reasonably obtain one. And if you're eligible to vote by mail, learn about the requirements and how to identify yourself on your ballot by mail materials. So visit votetexas.gov today and get vote ready.
Mass Mutual knows retirement can be an uncomfortable conversation. Who's the big boy? You are. Who's going to take care of us when we retire? It's going to be you. You're going to make sure we don't end up in a retirement home. And if we do, it's a really nice one. With tango lessons. And bocce ball. And a community pool. Oh. Talk to us about retirement today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. Mass Mutual. Live.
I love when my friends stop by, but to help keep my friends and my family safe, I always spray Lysol in my home before guests arrive and again after they leave. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
On dark, foggy roads, do your fog lights provide the visibility you need? Upgrade to LEDs from Sylvania, the leader in automotive lighting. Experience how advanced optical design leads to superior down-road clarity. Visit the Sylvania website to find your LED bulbs today.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso. Short timing at this segment here. We're having a lot of good discussions here today. We'll keep doing that, but we got to take that break for the top of the hour right now. So if you wanted to call in, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of back and forth going on, things about positions, debates, the candidates going on here. We'll get all back there. We'll be back here after the top of the hour news here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, number 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Doing calls throughout the next hour. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Heavy congestion on Gateway southbound in Montana. The backup is to Trowbridge. The 10 westbound at Porfirio Diaz, an injury accident causing delays. The Gateway westbound is slow from the 54 Patriot back to Hawkins with 5-minute delays. And the medical team is working a wreck with injuries. Montwood Drive eastbound at Traywood. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, then El Paso Health Plus Medicare Advantage Plan offers great supplemental benefits designed specifically for El Pasoans, such as $3,500 a year in dental benefits, $300 in vision, and a quarterly OTC card with $250 to spend on health and wellness products. Plus, generous benefits for hearing, podiatry, home-delivered meals, and so much more. Plus, our new Get Fit benefit to keep you active and social, as well as our new Healthy Eats program. At El Paso Health Plus, we go the extra mile for our members because this is our home and our local knowledgeable staff is here to help you get more benefits, more services, more from your health plan. If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, call us 833-742-3125 or visit ephmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus, your local Medicare Advantage plan.
Louis Gohmert, what a wonderful guy. This is a man who's been a friend of mine from day one. I'm Louis Gohmert. As a congressman, I worked with President Trump to build the wall. Thank you, Louis. He's the only one that might be even tougher than us on the board. As a judge, I applied the law equally, no political favors.
Louis Gohmert, the Texas conservative with Texas integrity.
Ken Paxton's attacks on me are now revealing a real desperation. It doesn't bother me. As a judge, I've stared down even the most hardened of criminals. The fact is, Ken Paxton has been indicted for fraud and is being investigated for bribery. And the Democrats are licking their chops. But Texans shouldn't be punished for his actions. I'm Louis Gohmert, and as your next Attorney General, I'll restore the rule of law, and we will secure the border once and for all. Trust me, I'll be the woke mob's worst nightmare.
Louis Gohmert, Fort Texas. Political ad paid for by Louis Gohmert Campaign.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky believes Russia will fully invade tonight. He said the fate of Ukraine is being decided right now. This comes after the Biden administration warned Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, could fall quickly as Russian troops close in. President Biden is updating Americans about his call with NATO allies. He said the U.S. will defend every inch of NATO territory and noted our country's commitment to Article 5 is ironclad. Biden added NATO leaders are committed to collective defense and transatlantic security. Following the NATO summit, Biden spoke with Ukraine President Zelensky. Biden said he conveyed that ongoing economic, humanitarian, and security support are being provided by the U.S. New York is preparing to welcome thousands of refugees from Ukraine. Elected officials and Ukrainian groups met in New York City Friday, urging President Biden to start helping those escaping war.
We want the city and the state to welcome people fleeing the war with open arms.
In a statement, Governor Kathy Hochul said New York has the largest Ukrainian population in the United States. International hacking group Anonymous has declared a cyber war against Russia for invading Ukraine. Lisa Taylor has more.
The group of hackers took to Twitter and said members are currently involved in operations against the Russian Federation. They went on to say the main target is the Russian government, while adding the private sector will most likely be targeted as well. A number of Russian websites were taken offline because of cyber attacks launched by the group.
President Biden's nominee to the U.S. Supreme Court says she's truly humbled by her nomination. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson thanked God for being here and her faith for guiding her. New metrics will be used to recommend masks. The CDC unveiled a new community-level metrics system that labels an area's COVID level as low, medium, or high. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. 2 Florida men are being sentenced for their roles in the U.S. Capitol riot.
Manatee County's Adam Johnson received a sentence of 75 days in prison plus a $5,000 fine. Johnson was photographed carrying House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's lectern during the attack. Meanwhile, Jacksonville area resident Jeffrey Register also received a 75-day sentence and a $500 fine. He pleaded guilty to parading, demonstrating, or picketing in a Capitol building. I'm Rick Hoschel.
The resumption of student loan payments may not be a smooth process. After payments being paused for 2 years due to the pandemic, the Government Accountability Office says nearly half of student loan borrowers may be at increased risk of delinquency. Outdated contact information may also prove to be a challenge for the Education Department when trying to reach borrowers. Payments are currently set to start back up in May. A Carnegie Hall protest in New York City is now apparently off following the exit of a visiting Russian conductor with Kremlin ties. Liz Warner reports.
The conductor, Valery Gergiev, had been scheduled to conduct several weekend performances leading the Vienna Philharmonic, but the orchestra abruptly announced the conductor, who's a friend and ardent supporter of Russian President Vladimir Putin, won't be appearing. A Russian pianist also supportive of Putin was nixed from the lineup as well, and the concerts will feature replacements. The Philharmonic didn't offer an explanation for their departures, but activists have been protesting the appearance as Russia's invasion of Ukraine continues its violent escalation.
Top safety ratings are being given to the 2022 Chrysler Pacifica minivan and the Ram 1500 crew cab pickup. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety made the announcement this week. It's the second year in a row the Pacifica has been given the award, while the Ram truck has earned the rating 3 years in a row. The IIHS conducts a number of crash tests to determine a vehicle's safety performance. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Looking for a great deal on blinds, shades, and shutters? Save 50% off any order during Blindster.com's President's Day sale. Blindster offers custom wood and faux wood blinds, roller shades, cellular shades, even custom plantation shutters. And they're all 50% off for a limited time. Blindster.com.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/radio.
Crime skyrocketing. A dangerous crisis at the border. Joe Biden's socialist agenda is hurting Texas. The choice for Attorney General couldn't be more important. Ken Paxton, he's under indictment by a Texas grand jury and is being investigated by the FBI for corruption. Conservative lawyers in Paxton's office have seen enough. They resigned So Paxton's hired outside personal injury lawyers to handle important cases, costing Texas taxpayers millions. Texans have a better choice. Conservative Republican Eva Guzman, a lifelong Texan. She went from humble beginnings to a distinguished career as a Texas judge, where she ensured criminals stayed behind bars. As a justice on the Texas Supreme Court, Eva Guzman upheld the Constitution. She'll take on Joe Biden to secure our border and support law enforcement. Conservative Republican Eva Guzman for Attorney General. Political advertisement paid for by Texans for Eva Guzman.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. Whether you're driving around town, listening to the radio in your house, whoever you be tuning in terrestrially, more than welcome to here on 690 AM. If you're tuning in online through the iHeart Radio app or on KTSMradio.com, more than welcome that way as well. If you're over on our social media pages, Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. One of the better ways you can interact throughout the show as we are doing that whole free for all Friday thing. It also means we have that phone line open, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot to get into, a lot we're discussing here, because just to list a few things that are important and going on right now, we've got everything associated and impacted by Ukraine and that situation that has been causing me to not be sleeping much. Not like a worry thing, but there is just so much information coming out of it. It's almost hard to describe. Again, I am willing to call this, or be corrected on if it's truly the first or not, but calling this the first social media war because of how much information is. I'm really surprised that, frankly, the internet hasn't been shut off over there, but there's a whole lot that doesn't make sense to me of this whole conflict, and that's just one part of it. But then the impacts we are seeing here at home from it. From gas prices to expectations of gas prices to shipping and receiving and moving goods and services and supplies and shortages that might result, all of it going on here. Elections as well, because we have got that primary that we are getting close to the finale of, that then, of course, sets up the general election in November. We got the State of the Union coming up immediately after this on Tuesday, which we will be bringing you live here on air with some after show coverage as well. So just so much going on in and around here. I truly do feel like things are just happening faster these days. So if anyone has a different conception of that or thinks I'm crazy, let me know. Number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. John Browson making a comment here. Unfortunately, unknown candidates don't have a chance in hell unless they advertise their history. There is a reason to not start right at the top of the ballot here. I don't think some of the candidates we're talking about for, say, the agricultural commissioner are necessarily fit that mold, having held other public office, but still, it is a challenge to get your story out there. Absolutely. So also some other calls coming in. Again, if you want to call in during the show, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. About Russia's chief kleptocrat, the former head of the commie KGB.
Yep.
Patron and pal of failed two-time impeached President Trump, Vladimir Putin. Putin has invaded Ukraine, bombing schools, hospitals, apartment buildings, killing lots of innocent people. And now Putin is threatening the West with nuclear weapons by reminding us he has them. So what did his played pal, traitorous T-Rump say the other day? Trump called his patron Putin's invasion of Ukraine genius.
Okay, again, I feel like we've literally done this statement already, but the statement that was made on our air during the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton show came in the lead up to the invasion. Just want to make that crystal clear here, because talking about the statements being made when this still seemed like so much saber rattling, not exactly going to say that that's still the standpoint going on here, as we're looking at, as you did point out there, literal lives being lost on the ground as being a particularly great action to be taken here. But otherwise, the point you want to make aside of again, statements made prior to current events here?
He also characterized Putin's invasion as sending in peacekeeping forces. Now, I want you to note this. I want you and your Trumpers to note that your Messiah and the wannabe dictator Trump has yet to condemn this dictator's invasion of a free country and democracy.
Okay, and let's again be clear here. When we were talking about that, was the point being made by the president of the Russian Federation about sending in peacekeeping forces into the so-called breakaway republics, legitimate or not, Pravda or not, coming out of the government? I mean, again, the statements, it's important to actually read the statements being made here and not just look for bias confirmation, because he was talking about, and has continued talking about, the former president, the implications for our own borders, tactics, strategy, whatever, that kind of a thing here. So let's just make that perfectly clear when we're discussing that here, I think is important to do.
You know, Trump also said that he knows Putin very well, that Putin likes him, and that he likes Putin. Trump previously bragged about having a relationship with Putin. Well, you know what, Andrew? Most Ukrainians don't like Putin, and neither do most Europeans and Americans. And there goes Trump again, talking about his pal and patron Putin like a schoolgirl with a crush.
Okay, now we're just getting beyond the pale here. Okay, so I'm going to say something that I don't think is controversial, but may be in this day and age, when we're literally saying that maybe it's a good thing for leaders of our country to have decent relationship with leaders of other country. Now, did it go too far sometimes? I mean, the president is not the CEO of America because of the way it is intended to be, but the idea of only being adversarial with other, nations that may be opposed to our national interest, I mean, it is undeniable, has been brought up multiple times here, that there was not any further movement or escalation of the Ukrainian situation during the Trump administration. So there is something to be said for good relations. Heck, another article that has come up recently was about how the Cold War effectively ended, analyzing the relationship between Ronald Reagan and Gorbachev, among others, and other George Bush. I think George Bush more specifically here, given the end of it. But still, these are important things to realize, that relationships between national leaders is kind of important. It's part of, even if it's a little bit weird to me, how things can get resolved here. And if only there is going to be antagonism, and I mean, it has been under previous administrations that good relations with Russia has been striven for. I do remember while Secretary of State Hillary Clinton tried to do a reset with Russian officials at the time. Unfortunately, the writing on doing a little symbolic button press, unfortunately, the Russian official that this was presented to at the time pointed out that the button did not in Cyrillic read so much reset as it read overload. So missteps have been taken before, certainly here. I don't think anyone reasonably can say, it's a good thing Russia invading Ukraine, outside of, Vladimir Putin's actual inner circle, because even Russians are speaking out against this, and many of them, and an important thing to realize, why it's a good thing that we have the freedoms we do here, there are thousands of Russians who are being imprisoned almost as we speak, and are being potentially charged with treason. So just to kind of juxtapose here the situations we see within each and other country here, okay. I think we're going to move on from this here, because if we're just trotting the same well-worn ground about this, make no mistake, Russia invading Ukraine. I'm going to kind of agree with the Ukrainian ambassador to the UN Security Council when he said that there is no purgatory for war criminals. They go straight to hell. Dramatic moment to the end of that meeting as that invasion was unfolding on the first night here. All right, we'll take one more quick call before we hit this next break. 915-544-5876-544 KTSM. We have Andrew on the west side here with us. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Earlier today, I believe, President Zelensky of the Ukraine said any citizen who wants a firearm will be given one by the Ukrainian government. Well, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It goes to show that an armed population is the best thing to quell back an invasion. Look what happened in Afghanistan.
I mean, that has been going on for, I feel like that happened almost as of, like early Thursday, that was being talked about as one of the first things being discussed when it came to the response happening to this. And yeah, I've seen reports of people having gone to their local police station to be issued arms in order to facilitating the defense of the country here. That is one thing that irks me when it comes to the conversation that goes on within this country, is about the founding purpose and utility of this. Far too often the conversation comes down to, well, that kind of rifle isn't useful for hunting. And a phrase that sticks with me is that, cool, okay, that's an interesting point you're making, but the founding fathers had not just finished hunting deer when they wrote the Constitution. That was not the circumstance.
That is correct. That is correct, what you're saying. My next point was what Mary was saying. The authority of the Guard not only vests on private property, but on public property. They're there to assist in arrests. But also, when you're a law enforcement officer or engaging in those types of duties, you're there to protect people and property. Andrew, can you imagine what would have happened if those guardsmen were seen pushing those people away back into the river instead of helping them out of that raft?
I mean, I think we kind of got an idea of that when we had the whole situation in Del Rio earlier this year, when there was the implication of horse reins being used in a spicy manner, shall we say. I mean, we had a lot of conversation about that at the time, but I mean, that's the closest thing I can think of that comes to mind when you bring up that idea of it here. And I think it's an important distinction to be made of helping someone into a car to then drive away as of their own recognizance versus then facilitating putting them into custody. It is an important point to be made, but we actually did have Mary call back about that. We still have one call per day, just simple thing that doesn't come up that often, but just to clarify. And I do think that some of the response there was a little bit on the other side as well. And she wanted to clarify that she has been a solid Republican voter for quite some time here. And I do feel that questioning the motives of people and what they are talking about, as it stifles debate specifically, as it's been to say that, oh, no, you're not allowed to talk about that because that just helps the other side, is a bunk point to me. So I appreciate the points you're bringing up, absolutely, but I just wanted to make that a little bit further clear as it comes to this discussion here, saying that, no, I'm not allowed to say that because it might help our opponents here. Throw that out with the bathwater for me.
Yes, I understand. And by no means, I'm not putting her down. I'm just clarifying a few points that she made.
Absolutely.
But another thing about Abbott, when the pandemic started, yes, he did institute lockdowns, yes, and then I believe he weaned them in March of 2020. But then he had to roll back what he had done because there was an increase in infections. By by March of 2021, okay, we had gone back to a state of normalcy. Now, remember, people at the time of these lockdowns, we didn't have any vaccine. Okay, people were
true.
dying. The first case of COVID was at that Air Force base in San Antonio, Lackland Air Force Base, back in February of 2020 here in Texas.
One of the first ones. I seem to recall California here, but I mean, it went so out of control so quickly in terms of tracking initial cases and such that I don't trust my own recollection of it.
Yes, sir. That's understood. But remember this. Yeah, the first case in Texas was February of 2020. Now back to the firearm situation, folks. If you don't think what's happening in the Ukraine can happen in other countries or even countries close to us, let us not relive history. That's what I ask people. But thank you very much, Andrew.
No, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call there. This is something that has been bothering me, frankly, for a while here, as we have a lot of other interesting comments coming in here. But the logic that sometimes pervades some of our thoughts here that gets so divorced from reality. Firearms is an easy one to talk about here. The idea that, well, we should just not have to do that and no one should have them and those kind of things that just end up being a divorced from reality and how realistic circumstances can happen. It becomes kind of this idealized circumstance. Idealized, like, oh, everything will work out perfectly. When it also comes to things like, universal declarations of housing and food and things like, yes, in a perfect world, yes, all of these things, everyone should be perfectly safe. Everyone should have food, housing, etc. But we don't live in that perfect world. If it'll ever be achieved is a question to be asked for future generations, if that is even going to be possible. But the idea that, and therefore, regardless of consequence, these should all be done, it's not how it works. It's just not how it can be pulled out of a state of nature. It is not, there's something that can be fully formed out of the ground and handed to someone. It takes work, effort, and if things were to progress, as we hope they certainly don't, out of Eastern Europe or escalation therein, if things get back to kind of that state of nature, none of these things are going to be on the table. So to say that they should just always be provided no matter what, lacks an analysis of the reality of how it is done. And some of the other comments that come along with it, the idea that you may be entitled to certain things as a human being, but you're not entitled to the labor of another person, is another persuasive one for me. Actually getting a note here right now that there are some voting lines happening out there for the last day of early voting, so get out there if you want to do so. But we'll be back after this next break here with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. We'll take more calls on the line here coming forth. 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Expect delays from an injury accident, Joe Battle Boulevard, southbound at Pelicano just now. I-10 westbound at Reynolds, that earlier crash is still slowing traffic on the 10 westbound. On Lomerland Drive, south of Yermaland, is an accident there with police on the scene. Yarborough or North Loop Drive can be alternates. An injury accident in McCombs at Fairbanks, just north of the Trans Mountain. You could use Dyer as an alternate. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Hiring is hard. Luckily, there's Indeed. The hiring platform makes it easy to attract, screen, and interview candidates from the same place. Just sponsor a job. You'll immediately get a short list of quality candidates on Indeed. Visit Indeed.com/credit to get started.
It's Ram Truck Month at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Don't wait for your tax refund. Buy now and get huge savings with zero down. Save thousands in interest with zero APR for 72 months on all new 2022 Dodge Charger, SXT, and GT models. Huge selection of new cars, trucks, and SUVs with huge savings. 2022 Ram trucks with 2.9% APR for 72 months. Zero down. Zero payments for 90 days. Get her done. Upside down in your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. We've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. The all-new Sunland Park Dodge Certified Pre-Owned Supercenter has a great selection with more arriving daily. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is still fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. Zero APRs, $13.89 per thousand finance. Also, at vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Here's Joe Biden's strategy for the border crisis.
There will not be another foot of wall constructed on my administration. In the first 100 days of my administration, no one will be deported at all.
Biden's reckless border policies have emboldened dangerous drug cartels. Listen to Tarrant County Sheriff Bill Wayburn.
There's a clear and present danger. It's deadly fentanyl, and it's killing our kids. How's it getting here? Through our southern border. That's why Governor Abbott's deployed the National Guard to assist law enforcement at the border. He's given us new authority to arrest trespassers. He's increased jail capacity to handle criminal arrests. Joe Biden should be securing this border, but he won't. That's why Governor Abbott is getting the job done.
Governor Abbott is endorsed by the National Border Patrol Council. On March 1st, vote for Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact with the show. We're taking those comments and calls throughout the rest of this hour anyways. We are in the 5 to 6 p.m. hour. We are 4 to 6 p.m. every day and on Fridays, paying those comments and calls for free for all Friday. And so, as is not entirely unexpected, some questions about how we handle our calls has come up here, particularly from a previous caller that I'll go ahead and put up on screen here if you're looking over on social media about interruptions and the way we handle conversation. So I just want to make something perfectly clear. If anyone wants to call in, they're more than welcome to do so. But if anyone is then going to say more or less the exact same thing day to day, you're not going to have a good time. I say it more often than I probably should, that I hope against hope that all of our callers will bring in an interesting, unique, and debatable point here. But if we're just going to be repeating the same thing, and to the caller that this is referencing and making the point about himself over in the comments, this almost seems identical to what you were saying yesterday. That's just not good radio, my dude. And to think that we're just going to, by rote, entertain and do something exactly the same, I think you are maybe misremembering the way that when interesting points are brought up, when people want to be, conversational here, answer questions, bring up unique points, then we have a good time having that discussion, having that debate, and doing what we do on this program. But if it's going to be the same thing, we're going to move on, plain and simple, and without bias in terms of topic. I'm happy to take questions about that over on my email, andrewpolk@iheartmedia.com, in case there are any questions about how we handle calls and how we do it. Anyway, getting to more of the calls on the line here. 915-544-5876-544 KTSM. Right now, we do have, I believe, Michael on the east side here with us. Michael, thanks for joining us.
Hey, how's it going? How you guys doing today? I just had a quick couple little comments right quick. In regards to what's going on in Ukraine, any soldier that is caught or any family member that is associated with a soldier in Ukraine, the Russians plan to execute them. That, my friend, is true tyranny.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime that I'm not a Biden fan. I'll be straight up to tell you that. But we had temporary mask mandates, and you had fools telling us that is tyranny. Go ask the people of Ukraine if there's a difference between wearing a mask and someone attacking your country where you're going to be possibly a slave. Number two, anybody that roots for Putin over U.S. president, regardless of affiliation or party, you are not American. How can you root for an adversary and think that is genius over your own president? You call yourself an American when you root for an adversary, or just because you want to remain in power or you want to gain votes? That's all I have to say. I listen for your comments. Thank you.
No, I appreciate the point in the call there. Very much agreeing, particularly with your second one there. The idea that, there is perfect amount of the issues to be debated on for the current administration, what they're putting forth, and we can certainly have that discussion. But if anyone says, and therefore I support Putin over this president, you're going to have a bad time with me, probably with our callers, and in general, because, it's not going to fly. It's not going to fly with me. We'll allow you to entertain the point here, but just know, again, you're going to have a bad time because literally, it's a phrase that has its issues from the Vietnam era, if I'm not mistaken, but my country, right or wrong, but my country regardless. Issues with that phrase too, but supporting any foreign adversary, and make no mistake, particularly since, as a point that was brought up and is correct, Putin was one of the head honchos of the KGB. That nice little communist organization, and his literally avowed statements to want to recreate the Soviet Union. Let's just think about that here as we make our relative assessments of suitability. Anyway, getting more calls in line here. We do have Joe on the west side here with us right now. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, man. I debate these people on the left. Half of them are just so misinformed, and it's sad, and partly that's y'all's fault in the media and in the indoctrination they get in school and from the other sources. I'm going to lay out Biden's greatest accomplishments of his first year in office.
Mm-hmm.
If you disagree with any, I want you to please say why you disagree. But I also want you to tell me what his three greatest accomplishments are. Let's start with double the price of gasoline, created rampant inflation, gave Afghanistan back to the Taliban while leaving thousands and thousands of Americans behind, especially the Christians who are getting raped, murdered, and beheaded, left $8.5 billion worth of equipment in Afghanistan, covered up his son's crime and his own involvement, created a border crisis that allowed millions of illegal immigrants into the country, and even worse, fentanyl and other drugs. You know, we're losing 100 American kids or young adults every month or every week at least. That's a bigger crisis in Ukraine by far. You know, he's purposely letting the border in. He shipped all these COVID-effective illegal immigrants mainly to red states to make them purple. He's tried to make voting fraud legal through the so-called For the People Act. He became president. He weaponized the CDC, FBI, DOJ, and OSHA, even calling people that complain at school board meetings terrorists. He called thousands of people to lose their jobs by illegal mandates. He created a supply chain issue that has still stifled the economy to this day.
Mm-hmm.
He demonized all political opponents, even those, like I said earlier, at the PTA meetings. He turned Washington, D.C. into a police state, including barbed wires over the fence and blocking off the Capitol. And he put every country in the world before America, including shutting down our own oil supply while giving pipelines to Russia. Now, if he really wants to get even with Russia, we would start drilling, and supplying all the energy to Europe that they need. You know, Germany's not even talking bad about Putin because they want that energy from Putin. From Russia. And
yeah.
I want you to tell me what you think. I want you to tell me your opinions. I know you know lots of Democrats. I'm not saying you are or whatever, because the Democrats, all they do is name call and call it a Trumper, which I'm not. I have like 3 or 4 other candidates I like way more than Trump. When you try to debate people honestly on social media, and it's very frustrating their lack of total ignorance. But tell me what your 3 greatest, your friends who are Democrats, what their 3 greatest things they like about Biden in his first year, please.
I mean, that's putting kind of a hard duty on me here because, frankly, the people that I know that consider themselves Democrats and leftists are not that pleased with this administration. The conversations I've had with them mostly have gone to what was promised and not followed through on, just for my age and demographic. The idea of a student loan relief or forgiveness, it has kind of wallowed on for a while here in that non-repayment status that has happened, but a lot of them feeling kind of deceived on that point. So I'm not going to try and spin anything about this administration because that's all I'd be trying to do at this point. The simple fact of the matter is that a majority of Americans, according to recent polling that has come out, say that they are dissatisfied or feel that this first year of the Biden administration was a failure based on, largely economic situations. Not agreeing with all of your characterizations there, such as, fentanyl is a serious crisis, but also Ukraine is also its own crisis, saying that one is greater than the other, I think misses a question of scale, and it's frankly an apple to oranges comparison because, sure, fentanyl is literally the number 1 killer of, I believe it's 18 to just under 50-year-olds in this country. Huge issue, absolutely. But also the situation in Ukraine, if not handled incredibly carefully, could literally go nuclear. So, these are both crises in the border as it is, and I don't get the whole debate over calling it a crisis or not, except for pure politics. I'm going to put the question out there because I don't feel totally qualified to say what I feel are the successes of this administration. I've been feeling way more bogged down just personally in my thinking about it with the issues that have come along with it and, the situations that we're in. So I'll go ahead and put the questions out there. Anyway, we're going to take that next break. Thank you for the point in the call. We got to take that next break right now. Coming out of the break, we will get to more of those comments and calls, squeezing in what we can here for the rest of our show. Are taking those throughout both hours here. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM is the way to do so. If you want to call in. Back after this break. Talk to you then.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
With your CBS 4 News update, I'm Amanda Guillen. Former Las Cruces Public School Superintendent Dr. Karen Trujillo will be honored. Today marks 1 year since she was killed in a tragic accident. Trujillo was hit by a car while she was walking her dogs in her neighborhood. There will be a memorial mass in Trujillo's honor at Holy Cross Catholic Church. The district is asking staff to wear red today. And in case you missed it, a new Texas law is causing national outrage and debate once again. The governor sent out a letter yesterday calling on people to report the parents of transgender kids. It comes after Attorney General Ken Paxton issued an opinion saying parents who allow their kids to receive transgender therapy are guilty of child abuse. While an opinion is an interpretation of existing law, it does not affect or change the law itself, but can affect how it is enforced. El Paso County leaders have said, however, that their recommendation won't be enforced here. With your CBS 4 News update, I'm Amanda Guillen.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
That earlier injury accident on the I-10 westbound at Reynolds is 10-minute delays. Reynolds back to Hawkins. Injury accident McCombs at Fairbanks. Dyer can be an alternate for you there. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Hawkins. Joe Battle Boulevard southbound at Pelicano. An injury accident there. Expect delays. And heavy congestion on the border highway at Americas Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
The KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center. This is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We've got a pretty quiet forecast leading into the weekend with a much warmer day on Saturday, only to be followed by an overnight weak front Saturday night into Sunday. So Sunday looks to be about 4 to 5 degrees cooler, but really in the big picture, we're not looking too bad. In fact, going into next week, we could even be flirting with temperatures once again near 80.
This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State. Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
Now may be the perfect time to buy a home financed by Loan Depot. Loan Depot has over 300 loan products to help you make home ownership a reality. Interest rates are near historic lows. Rates will not stay low forever. So call 866-888-LOAN so one of our thousands of loan officers can help you find the right loan. Call 866-888-LOAN or visit loandepot.com. Loan Depot. Rates are subject to change. Equal housing opportunity lender. NMLS number 174457. Licensed in all 50 states.
Mass Mutual knows retirement can be an uncomfortable conversation.
Who's the big boy?
You are.
Who's going to take care of us when we retire?
It's gonna be you.
You're going to make sure we don't end up in a retirement home.
And if we do, it's a really nice one.
With tango lessons.
And bocce ball.
And a community pool.
Oh. Talk to us about retirement today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. Mass Mutual. Live me.
I love when my friends stop by, but to help keep my friends and my family safe, I always spray Lysol in my home before guests arrive and again after they leave. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
On dark, foggy roads, do your fog lights provide the visibility you need? Upgrade to LEDs from Sylvania, the leader in automotive lighting. Experience how advanced optical design leads to superior down-road clarity. Visit the Sylvania website to find your LED bulbs today. This report is sponsored by Sylvania.
KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. Oh, the comment section is always entertaining, at the very least. A lot of questions of suitability, policies, therefore, relationships between current and former leaders and such here. Jeez. Oh, it's always a good time over here, and we're talking about a lot of those here today because it is Friday. So if you wanted to comment, social is a good way to do that, or call in. Full up at the moment, but the number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Let me just make it very clear. I've said this before, but feel the need to reiterate it here. I'm not interested in drinking anyone's Kool-Aid here. Some of the possibilities that came in with the current administration when it came to, they're talking about, ramping up vaccine production, which I did choose to take. rather to say they were continuing on the policies that had been put in place for the previous administration, looking at economic recovery. There was I also just have to say that even out of the Democratic field, the Biden administration was not my first choice. And of the people I talked to, Democrats, since the question came up, that there was kind of the, well, at least it's not the other guy kind of rationale came down to it. And I think we're looking at, well, the impacts that come with it here. But yeah, it doesn't take a whole degree in political science to look at the impacts we are feeling from this and to make your own reasonable assessment therein. Anyway, get into calls on the line, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We do have Victor on the west side here with us right now. Victor, thanks for joining us.
Andrew, thank you for taking my call. Listen, over the break, I was really racking my brain trying to think of those three accomplishments that we can credit President Biden to. And I struggled, but maybe boosting sales for Baskin-Robbins over the last year. I mean, it's a hard one. So with relation to the previous caller that constantly calls in to point out President Trump's failures or criticisms along with the people who voted for him, I don't think you have to search too far back in presidential history to find fault with our commander-in-chiefs who have served when our sitting president right now not only made a huge blunder with the exit strategy in Afghanistan, leaving over 30,000 American citizens behind. I mean, you don't have to be Dwight D. Eisenhower to understand that you first secure the civilians, the equipment, and then you pull the troops out, not the other way around. And I think for me, what made it far worse was not only the mistake that he made, but covering the tracks by telling the entire nation that all his generals were in unanimity with him on the exit strategy, only to find out later when those generals were before Congress to discover that they actually indeed were opposed to this exit strategy. So my concern right now, which deeply concerns me, Andrew, at this point, is that we still have over 23,000 Americans in Ukraine. And it is up to our president to figure out how to get them out. It doesn't look like he's actually going to do anything about it. So I want to commend organizations like the Nazarene Fund, Project Dynamo, ex-retired military forces that go in there to danger areas, to zones, and they bring Americans back home or just at least get them out of the troubled areas. So again, this is a time for us to shine, I think, as a people, as an American spirit is concerned. But with respect to our president, whether you're Republican or Democrat, I think we need to demand accountability. And I think we need to demand the truth along with it.
Absolutely. I mean, that was even one of the more specific comments made by the people I know that voted for Biden, saying that, okay, he may not be perfect, but we need to hold him accountable and we'll get done when we need to. That is a question that I would ask them. How is that working out? Okay, so you want to bring up, I've got one thing that I can say, at least about this administration, that I have liked, and that was the reaffirming of the commitments to allies, particularly within NATO, that has now come into sharp relief and focus as an important thing here. I think that all other things being equal, if the situation were to just stay as it was currently, that we would be seeing for the NATO alliance, the question of why it exists, its basic reason, was at the forefront of the issues here, because it was designed to counter the Soviet Union. Without that, why does it continue to exist here? So the reassuring of allies, I feel like, is a good one that has now come into, well, no one could have predicted totally that this is the situation we would be in.
Yeah. I'll give him credit for that. I just hope that it doesn't go changed here in the near future.
I mean, the only time will tell, as far too many things are turning out to be that way these days. So do appreciate the point in the call. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we got time for at least one more call here this segment, and we will get to more of them here, absolutely. Right now, we do have Al in the Northeast with us here on the line here. Al, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks you, Andrew, for taking my call. I just want to compliment and echo the points that the last two callers from the west side, I didn't catch their names, made. They made a long list of all the Biden administration failures. There hasn't been a single policy that they've enacted that hasn't either ruined what progress the Trump administration made or just been a total catastrophe. I think the American people at the midterm election here are about to turn the tables on these fools that are running our country. And one other quick point, you mentioned something about Hillary Clinton earlier in the hour here, and I'm still wondering why the Clinton corruption hasn't been prosecuted. You know, their foundation shut down. They took campaign contributions from China. She gave 20% of our uranium stockpile to Russia for her own wealth. I mean, these people they make Al Capone look like an amateur. Why hasn't any Congress or committee followed up on the corruption of these Clintons? And one last point here. We're facing this situation in Ukraine by the collective weaknesses of every Democrat president since Truman.
I mean, we're looking at the culmination of American foreign policy, which had been more or less consistent, except for various differences between administrations. But up until essentially the Trump administration was one of the greatest upendings we saw of U.S. foreign policy, most specifically. And well, again, there are certain comparisons that can be made about how it has performed and what the differences are on the either side of that.
You notice that the Russians kept in their own backyard when Reagan and Trump were in power, because they were up against people who were really commanders in chief, not this sponge spine president we have now who can't even find his own pajamas.
Again, there are certain comparisons that can definitely be drawn here. The one other thing I want to say is that point about uranium that comes up a decent amount here is that, I mean, it belabors the point here that no, the raw uranium was not shipped to Russia. What it was is that there was a possibility of some mining happening, I believe within Canada primarily, that was then optioned to a Russian company. Whether or not that should have been allowed is a reasonable point to make, but that one irks me whenever it comes up here. But we'll move on there. Thank you for the point and the call here. All right, we got to take one more quick break, and we will come back after this and get to final calls in the line here. Again, if you want to try to squeeze in, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
That earlier injury accident on the I-10 westbound at Reynolds is 10-minute delays. Reynolds back to Hawkins. Injury accident McCombs at Fairbanks. Dyer can be an alternate for you there. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Hawkins. Joe Battle Boulevard southbound at Pelicano. An injury accident there. Expect delays. And heavy congestion on the border highway at Americas Avenue. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Looking for a great deal on blind shades and shutters? Save 50% off any order during Blindster.com's President's Day sale. Blindster offers custom wood and faux wood blinds, roller shades, cellular shades, even custom plantation shutters, and they're all 50% off for a limited time. Blindster.com.
Here's Joe Biden's strategy for the border crisis.
There will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration. In the first 100 days of my administration, no one will be deported at all.
Biden's reckless border policies have emboldened dangerous drug cartels. Listen to Tarrant County Sheriff Bill Wayburn.
There's a clear and present danger. It's deadly fentanyl, and it's killing our kids. How's it getting here? Through our southern border. That's why Governor Abbott's deployed the National Guard to assist law enforcement at the border. He's given us new authority to arrest trespassers. He's increased jail capacity to handle criminal arrests. Joe Biden should be securing this border, but he won't. That's why Governor Abbott is getting the job done.
Governor Abbott is endorsed by the National Border Patrol Council. On March 1st, vote for Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
The area's premier chamber orchestra, Camerata del Sol, is proud to present a historic production featuring music by Baroque women composers. Join them at the Women's Club of El Paso this Friday at 7:30 p.m. or at the First Presbyterian Church of Las Cruces this Saturday at 3 p.m. Arrive an hour early for a pre-concert lecture by Kathleen Key on Baroque painter Artemisa Gentileschi. For details and tickets, visit cameratadelsol.org. That's cameratadelsol.org.
Hey, Texas! We want to remind you that it's election season. In Texas, you'll need an approved form of ID to vote. Visit votetexas.gov to learn what types of photo ID you can bring to the polls and what to do if you don't possess and can't reasonably obtain one. And if you're eligible to vote by mail, learn about the requirements and how to identify yourself on your ballot by mail materials. So visit votetexas.gov today and get vote ready.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk, getting some reports in about voting going on right now, apparently going strong for the last day of early voting. So from someone saying it took them about 50 minutes from the front door to finish voting right now. So, hey, if you want to take advantage of that and not face lines on Election Day, now is your time, because it's today. Some poll places open till 7, and then we get Election Day on Tuesday. So a point about that real quick. We're going to be having some more guests for you about these local circumstances and, domestic situations anyway, coming out of the conflict in Ukraine and what the heck it might look by next Tuesday. Anyway. And then we also got the State of the Union. We'll be bringing some coverage on air about that, including the airing of the State of the Union on 690 AM here in El Paso, and a little bit of after analysis about what that means for our region and such, and a whole lot more coming up for you next week, so stay tuned for that. We are going to squeeze in a couple more calls here if we can, so just try to keep it short and sweet here as we get to what we can on the line here as we're coming up at the end of the show. Right now we do have Jerry in Northwest. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call. Anonymous is helping just try to stop Russia and their internet capability over there. The problem is with that is the retaliation that Russia may put back on us. We don't know what they're doing, and I don't think Anonymous has the capability of seeing into the future to find out when and where that's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. He's referring to the hacktivist, very disparate collective that has been on a whole lot of different sides of issues. So I don't necessarily trust them, but interesting to see how they come down.
Yes. The reason why the National Guard is on the border is they are an asset, a force multiplier. They are also a deterrent, and they have the equipment and the capability to move large things like them shipping containers that can be a blockade in certain areas. So that's one reason why they're on, or basically three reasons why they're on the border.
Absolutely. And again, there's been a lot of discussion by the governor about that and why he has done it. Whether or not you buy it, that's an individual decision you got to make here, but it certainly will have an impact on this upcoming election. Certainly agree about that. Thank you for the point in the call. Trying to get into squeezing what we can here. We do have also David on the east side here with us. David, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having the call. NATO's dead. NATO's dead because we had a treaty with Ukraine that if Ukraine would remove their nuclear missiles, we would defend them against invasion. So the whole world knows what an inept paper tagger the United States now is. We will not keep our word with any treaty anywhere with anybody in the world. We will no longer support or defend anybody. So that's very, very clear on that. Also, might make a point that why is El Paso the only major city in Texas that hasn't received a lot of tech jobs? Why are they going into Central Texas where traffic is horrible? Why aren't they coming here? And I would suggest that Robert Fanny O'Rourke, people see us as through his mouth. And Robert Fanny O'Rourke does not represent El Paso, and he does not represent us, and neither does Veronica Escobar, who's Pelosi's patsy. So NATO's dead. United States is a paper tagger. It's all coming to an end. Look for Putin to get everything back that the USSR, that's what he wants. He wants the USSR back, and it's all coming because we have, well, it's coming up on 6 o'clock here. That's 8 o'clock Eastern time. That's Joe Biden's bedtime. So good night, Joe. Thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely. Thank you for the point in the call there. Yeah, referring to the Budapest memorandum there that has come back into focus here in recent days. We'll have to talk more about the future shows. We're going to get to one last quick one. Oscar on the east side. Oscar, what's on your mind?
Yeah, you know what? If we don't start drilling and stuff, all these pay increases that we give employees and all that, that's out the door. I mean, it's like it's going to balance itself off, and there was nothing gained. It brought a lot of electric cars. That's fine for the people that want them. But if we increase the the gas price, if it keeps going up and we don't start drilling, all is for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, the whole analysis of, well, I got a 2% raise this year. Yeah, but inflation is 7%, so you technically took a 5% pay cut, has, more than a couple of people I know having that kind of a conversation amongst themselves, their loved ones, about what does that mean for their future career prospects. And that's okay. They want to tout something that the administration has put forth as something that they have done well this year, the increase in jobs and GDP, but they don't then address the point about inflation, cost of living, and all those parts here, which is why that one falls flat for me. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. Oh, it has been a hell of a show. It's been a hell of a week, and we will keep doing that here 4 to 6 p.m. as we do here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, just as a note for next week, we are going to be bringing you live coverage of the State of the Union address that comes here, I believe, if I got my time right, 7 p.m. local time. So we'll be having that for you, the State of the Union address itself, and then some local after coverage about it. Otherwise, I do want to thank everyone who did call in, participate, be a part of the show. Oh, it's always so much fun, and I love doing it, and we'll keep doing that here every Monday through Friday as we do. So just on a personal note, everyone, make sure you go out and vote. You better vote. If we don't hit double digits, I'm going to fly into a rage and destroy this room around me. Not really, if management's listening. But more specifically, we need to be doing more in our community. Because as we're looking at everything going on around the world, I know there's a lot of concerning circumstances going on. Coming together as a community is what has seen El Paso through bad times in the past, and anything that comes through forth. I have no doubt that El Paso will come through, but I think we'll come through so much the better if we do work together on this. And that's one thing I hope that we facilitate out there, the discussion about the issues, and being able to have a civil and reasonable discussion about what is important to us is literally the cornerstone of this country and our society, and we'll keep doing that and supporting that as best we can. So I want to thank everyone who did participate in the show. You all really would help make the show what it is. We'll do it again next week, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Stay safe out there. I mean it. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great weekend. We'll see you all on Monday.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got an injury accident in Zaragoza at Edgemere, a crash at Zaragoza at Americas Avenue that's slowing traffic. Gateway westbound is slow from the 54 Patriot back to Hawkins with 5-minute delays. And look for EMS and police on the scene working an accident at Montwood Drive eastbound at Traywood. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, then El Paso Health Plus Medicare Advantage Plan offers great supplemental benefits designed specifically for El Pasoans, such as $3,500 a year in dental benefits, $300 in vision, and a quarterly OTC card with $250 to spend on health and wellness products. Plus, generous benefits for hearing, podiatry, home-delivered meals, and so much more. Plus, our new Get Fit benefit to keep you active and social, as well as our new Healthy Eats program. At El Paso Health Plus, we go the extra mile for our members because this is our home, and our local knowledgeable staff is here to help you get more benefits, more services, more from your health plan. If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, call us 833-742-3125 or visit ephmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus, your local Medicare Advantage plan.
Mass Mutual knows that your finances can be an uncomfortable conversation.
Mark, we should really talk about our money.
Yep, we really should.
Like, we never talk about our savings.
No, we never talk about that. Or our assets.
Or our debt.
Yeah, we really should talk about our debt.
We need one of those financial plans.
One of those will make a difference.
We should talk about it.
We really should.
Talk to us about financial wellness today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. Mass Mutual. Live Mutual.
The following program will be recorded.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that. Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News on the hour and the half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky believes Russia will fully invade tonight. He said the fate of Ukraine is being decided right now. This comes after the Biden administration warned Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, could fall quickly as Russian troops close in. Details about new sanctions imposed on Russian President Vladimir Putin are being revealed. The BBC reports Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Boris Johnson, announced the sanctions include an asset freeze but not a travel ban. Earlier today, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki confirmed the U.S. sanctions are being done in partnership with allies in Europe. Former Vice President Mike Pence is blasting the White House's response to the invasion of Ukraine. He argued that Russia has to be cut off from all forms of finance.
I think it's absolutely essential that we sanction the entire financial sector.
Pence said he met Putin and knows he only responds to a show of strength. The CDC is updating the metrics it uses for recommending masks. Director Rochelle Walensky was among those to unveil a new community-level metric system that labels an area's COVID level as low, medium, or high. The CDC now says masks only need to be worn when a community is in the high level. Immunocompromised people are recommended to wear masks when a location is in the medium tier. The resumption of student loan payments may not be a smooth process. Lisa Taylor has more.
After payments being paused for 2 years due to the pandemic, the Government Accountability Office says nearly half of student loan borrowers may be at increased risk of delinquency. Outdated contact information may also prove to be a challenge for the Education Department when trying to reach borrowers. Payments are currently set to start back up in May.
New home sales are down as mortgage rates rise. The Commerce Department says sales of new single-family homes fell 4.5% in January to an annual rate of just over 800,000 units. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. A 12-year-old New York boy is taken into custody after allegedly posting a school threat on Snapchat. David Folk Thomas reports.
The Hudson Valley Post reports the boy has been charged with making a terroristic threat for posting online that he was going to bring a gun to Poughkeepsie Middle School where he is a student. School officials became aware of the post Thursday around 10:30 a.m., and police were quickly able to identify the suspect. Authorities would not comment on whether the boy is responsible for posting a threat earlier this week that led to both the Poughkeepsie High School and middle schools to shut down Tuesday and Wednesday.
The commissioner of the SEC is admitting to communication failures with Texas A&M over the plan to add Texas and Oklahoma to the conference. Greg Sankey tells the Houston Chronicle he'll own his failure to effectively communicate last year when word leaked the Big 12 schools wanted to leave for the SEC. The Aggies